Thank you very much. Hello everyone, welcome to the talk. As Andy's just said, I'm with Jo Littlefair. She's the director and co-founder of design studio Goddard Littlefair, and they have a wealth of experience within the hospitality and commercial sector. They work on international projects all the time, from hotels to private residences to bars and restaurants, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So welcome, Jo. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So if we start off by looking at what you feel the key interior design considerations are when you're looking at designing a bar or a restaurant, and then how does lighting form part of that for you?
Okay, so one of the most important things that probably covers a lot of interior design briefs is the brief, and getting the client to buy into it properly, getting them to understand what their market is, what they're trying to achieve. So that's looking at everything about what kind of F&B offerings are in the area at the time, and making sure that they're differentiating themselves but equally buying into what the trends are in the local environment. And then also looking at the building, the site, what that's like, what you've got naturally. Have you got a lot of natural light? Have you got a very dark enclosed space? Conversely, all of these things really affect how you're going to position the lighting and what you're going to do with it and bring out, as it were. And really important to that is also looking at, is this a day to night venue, or is this solely an evening venue? And on all those sort of purposes, because you design the lighting scheme completely differently depending on what you want to achieve and how long you want people to stay there. And there are ways to make people, come in and come out, like fast food outlets have really bright lighting so you don't have a long dwell time. Yeah. Whereas you might want people to have a long, luxurious evening and possibly go from a restaurant to a bar within the same space. So how do you change the lighting between those two sort of areas is really key.
And you get that a lot in sort of hotel bars and restaurants, don't you? I guess it's sort of one big space that has to multi-perform in a way.
Yeah, I mean, you get the whole thing. In the hospitality world, the all-day breakfast, all-day dining room is really a term that no one wants to use anymore. They end up being sort of breakfast rooms and then dead for the rest of the day.
Right.
Unless they can transform and become sort of function rooms for conferences that might go on. But again, it's about creating spaces that are much more human. And lighting's got a really key part to play in all of that. The softness that it can add, the layering, making people feel welcome and at ease, even if they're at work. So there's lots of considerations we have.
Okay. So what sort of traps do some bars and restaurant clients fall into that you have to steer them away from?
So we're interior designers, and we know what we want to accent and what we want to bring out. There are things that sometimes we want to bring out positives and negatives in spaces, so enjoy some of the dark spaces if you want a really intimate zone. But one of the things that we find is a challenge for us is if the client's not willing to bring on a professional lighting designer who understands what our aspirations are for that space and sort of what we want to highlight and dress and pick out. They have all the technical know-how. The devil is in the detail, as it were, and they can really sort of put the right LED tracks in and things like that, that you've got the right tone of lighting and it's doing what you want it to do, whether that's getting people to stay longer or getting people to move on.
And it's important, isn't it, that collaboration, I think, between interior designers and lighting designers. It's growing more and more, that.
I think there's an increasing acknowledgement for how much people really need specialists on board for each element, and lighting designers just have that. They move with the times, all that, they're looking at the new technology, and they're able to give us that intelligence and that authority when we're coming to doing a lighting design scheme. And I think it's a small investment, really, but to get the lighting right at the end of a project is absolutely critical. So we wholeheartedly support and embrace that.
That's good to hear at a lighting show.
There we go.
So when you're working with the lighting designers and you're working on the project, how do you use decorative and architectural lighting to complement one another and really bring the space alive?
So with the architectural lighting, it's almost like the tools that we use to wash the canvas, as it were. They're almost they're elements that aren't really seen, ideally. I mean, I've got a real hatred of lots of downlights on ceilings and things like that. So if we can hide it and put it in little alcoves or behind the back of a banquette, so we're just washing a wall but really discreetly, that's a really useful element that architectural lighting can bring. But then with decorative lighting, what that does is that can really embolden your concept, or whatever the direction is with the restaurant. Is it Mexican? Is it Asian? If you can put a flick on the lighting that really nods you in that direction, then it really adds to the whole concept of the space. So it's really important, and getting that tone of it right, the warmth of it right, is really critical as well.
So if we turn our attention, we're going to look at a specific project now called Villa Copenhagen, which I just need to get to.
I can talk a little bit about the project while we're getting there.
Yeah, but you introduce the project while I find the slide.
This project will hopefully complete in the early stages of next year, 2020. It's a beautiful building. It was a post office building in Copenhagen, just outside the train station and opposite the Tivoli Gardens. It's actually got 4 restaurant and bars within it, and we've had the pleasure of designing all of them, which is equally a challenge, because how do you differentiate within the space?
Yeah.
But there have been all sorts of different uses they've wanted to bring out in them. So the all-day dining is not the all-day dining.
Right.
It's the sorting room where they used to sort all the letters and so on.
Okay.
And it also serves to help the pre-function, as a pre-function space in hospitality terms, but we don't want it to feel like that. It's very contemporary, and it respects the architecture and the heritage of the building. And we've actually been able to look at old pictures of people sorting the post in that room, and look at the lighting that was there, and how they clip fabrics around a shade. And we've tried to bring that out in some of the development of the lighting that we've actually done. And then you've got an all-day a brasserie, which is actually on a part of the building that's got lots of natural light. And natural light is a really key element to consider when we're looking at restaurants. So if you've got a lot of it, you need a device to be able to screen some of that during the day and keep things calm and comfortable. But at night, the windows can become a little bit of a mirror if you've got too much lighting on the inside of the restaurant. So if you've got a way to dim down that lighting, it means you'll be able to still see out through the glazing, and you get that view that you need. So that's happened in the all-day brasserie. Right.
We've got it on screen now.
Okay, so this is actually called the Playroom. This is this is connected to a real sultry bar, and it's sort of an ancillary room that doesn't necessarily have an obvious bar in it, but people want to be able to, they want to hire this out as, it could be a launch venue, it could be a private party venue, and it's got that link to the bar, but it's got flexibility. So we've got lots of low-level lighting coming in here. So it's not going to be open all day. It's purely about being moody and interesting at night. And some of the wall features are inspired by some of the more Scandinavian pieces we found on the property. But we've also got textured blown glass as well. So it might be contemporary shapes, but they've got the texture of things that we found on the site.
Okay.
And it's interesting. Oh, there we go. Right, so the brasserie is the image up on the left-hand side there, and you can see it feels full of natural light.
It's very light.
Yeah, and sort of inviting, and you could happily do sort of breakfast through to dinner in there. So it's a space that has to transform. And candlelight is very important in Copenhagen, well, as it is in all the Scandinavian countries. A candle comes out on the table, and it's an essential part of it. So it's all about taking those levels down during the day.
Okay.
And screening the sunlight during the day. Kitchens and bars, we haven't talked about where to place them in the restaurant, actually. And sometimes it's good, especially to get them away from the glazing, so that at night they become almost the light spot within the restaurant. If you dim everything down, it becomes the highlight. So that's quite cool. But also just to watch out for opening back of house doors, and if you've got the wrong temperature of light back of house, that can affect how the diners feel in the space. So that's
it's sort of trying to keep it involved within the space and keep it part of it, but not seeing the back bit of it as well, all the stuff going on behind the scenes.
Bit.
So just the glamour side.
And the image to the right is another part of that brasserie space where we expose the ceiling, which is the raw material, but the feature light there was it was actually modelled on a lamp that was found in the space as well.
Right, wow.
So and then the sorting room to the bottom left is it's where the breakfast's going to be served. It's the ancillary rooms to the conferencing areas, and it's really light and bright, despite being lower in ground level. And we've kept that light and bright by washing the walls and uplighting the columns with the little pin spots.
Yeah.
And then the light, as you can see, the little cord that flexes away from the arches, that was something that was used in the sorting room originally. And it's just those little nods to the concept that really ground it in the building.
Yeah, the details.
Yeah.
Lovely. So what were some of the, apart from obviously working with the daylight and things like that, what were some of the other challenges? Did you have any sort of structural challenges with some of this lighting, or?
Well, I mean, the brief on this was really difficult at first, because this was something that the client nobody's had before, because it's such an amazing building.
Yeah.
They didn't quite know what they were going to use each space for. So that's going back to getting that right from the beginning, and really, concluding that means that everybody's on the same journey.
Yeah, we had someone earlier say the biggest challenge was the client. Would you agree with
quiet. That and another word, but I'm not going to mention it. Budget.
Clients and budget.
Yeah. No, there were challenges. I mean, the client also wanted to use certain manufacturers, and then we discovered they couldn't quite get the techniques we wanted to use, so we did have to diversify a bit as well with that. So,
okay. And in terms of lighting on this project, did you work with a lighting designer on this project?
They've been able to advise us and sort of give that technical brief in conjunction with, so that's been absolutely essential.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we were going to talk about. I think we're done. Yeah, we can. Was there anything else you wanted to focus on this one? There's quite a lot of different elements on this one with the lighting.
Yeah, there is.
And you can see the candlelight element as well that you were mentioning before.
And it's about layering that lighting. I mean, you've got spots from above, but you've also got the decorative lighting coming through, and being able to switch them off and on, so you can really layer the space in the way that suits what the purpose it's been hired for, and also what the daylight's like outside, and whether it's a warm or a cold day. I mean, there's things like pendants over tables is quite an interesting one, because some venues use them to really create intimate spaces. So if you hang a pendant low over a table of two, it makes you sort of ignore what's going on around you, because they're almost darkened out. So that's quite interesting to do that, whereas some restaurants might want to be more flexible with their table seating. So then you would put something on more of a wide beam, so that you could have got that flexibility to move the tables together or apart. So that's quite a good consideration as well.
And I guess probably depending on, like, you going back to themes of restaurants as well, like whether it's a more casual space or a more fine dining and things like that.
Exactly. And if you have a really discerning guest, do they really want to be struggling with their phones out looking at the menu? So just making sure that you've got the level right for the guest you have. Whereas if you've got a younger guest, they might be up for the real intimacy and moodiness and a bit of coloured lighting, and a night venue that goes on much later. You can do things that are a little bit more crazy. Yeah. Possibly.
Any key final points you want to make about, you feel it's important to make about bar and restaurant lighting?
I think you just can't underestimate how important lighting is to bars and restaurants. It's absolutely critical.
Yeah.
It's up there with the food and the service for me in terms of getting it right. So,
great. Thank you, Jo. Hope you enjoyed that, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.